I stood in the corner of the ballroom, watching my son accept congratulations from people who didn't know me. The security guard uniform I wore was crisp and professional. The name tag read Robert Chen, Night Shift Supervisor. Nobody gave me a second glance. That's exactly what I wanted. Until tonight, my son Marcus stood at the center of the room, champagne glass raised, his wife Vanessa beside him in a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. This was his promotion party. Vice President of Technology at Novatech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Seattle. At 35 years old, he'd finally made it to the executive floor. I was proud of him. I'd raised him to be ambitious, to work hard, to never settle for mediocrity. His mother would have been proud too, if she'd lived to see this moment. Cancer took her when Marcus was 12. I'd raised him alone after that, working 3 jobs to keep him in a good school, to give him opportunities I never had. Or at least, that's what he believed. The ballroom was filled with executives, board members, investors. I recognized most of them, though they didn't recognize me. Why would they? Security guards are invisible to people like this. We're furniture. We're the help. I'd been working the night shift at Novatech's headquarters for 18 months now. It wasn't the career change people expected when you turned 60, but I had my reasons. Good reasons. Marcus was talking to a group of senior executives, animated, confident. He'd grown into a handsome man, tall, well-built, with his mother's eyes and my stubborn jaw. But lately, I'd noticed something else in those eyes. Something that worried me. Arrogance. Entitlement. A coldness that reminded me of Vanessa's family. The Blackwells. Old money from Connecticut. Vanessa's father owned a private equity firm. Her mother sat on the boards of half a dozen nonprofits, more concerned with being seen doing charity than actually helping anyone. They'd made it clear from the beginning that Marcus wasn't quite good enough for their daughter. Not from the right family. Not enough money. Not enough pedigree. And Marcus had spent the last 3 years trying to prove them wrong. I moved along the perimeter of the room, refilling champagne glasses, clearing empty plates. The staff knew me. We'd become friends over the past year and a half. Maria, the event coordinator, gave me a sympathetic smile as I passed. "You okay, Robert?" she whispered. I nodded. Just doing my job. She knew. She was one of the few who did. But she also understood why I needed to keep this going. I was watching Marcus, studying him, trying to understand what had happened to the boy I'd raised. The boy who used to help me fix cars in our garage, who'd bring me coffee when I came home exhausted from work, who'd told me I was his hero. When had that changed? I knew the exact moment. 3 years ago, at his engagement party, Vanessa's parents had cornered me, asked what I did for a living. At the time, I was between positions, consulting for various companies, but I told them the truth about my background. I'd started as a night janitor at a tech startup back in the 80s. Worked my way up, learned everything I could. Vanessa's mother had actually laughed. "How quaint," she'd said. "A real rags to riches story." Her tone made it clear what she thought of rags. And of me. Marcus had overheard. I saw something shift in his eyes that night. Shame. Embarrassment. He'd spent the rest of the party making excuses for me, explaining that I'd done well for myself considering my background, as if my background was something to apologize for. After that, his calls became less frequent. He stopped inviting me to company events. When Vanessa got pregnant 2 years ago, they'd announced it on Facebook before calling me. I found out I was going to be a grandfather from a social media post. Then Vanessa had a miscarriage. Marcus called me then, sobbing, breaking down. I'd driven 4 hours to Seattle in the middle of the night to be with him, held him while he cried, reminded him that grief takes time, that he and Vanessa would get through this together. For a few months after that, things were better. He called every week. We had dinner once a month. He seemed to remember that I was his father, not an embarrassment to be hidden away. But then he got this promotion. Suddenly, he was in the inner circle, invited to executive retreats, playing golf with the board members, and the calls stopped again. That's when I'd made my decision. I needed to see who my son had become when he thought I wasn't watching. So I'd called in a favor, pulled some strings, and got myself hired as the night shift security supervisor at Novatech. For 18 months, I'd watched him. I saw how he treated the cleaning staff, how he snapped at his assistant, how he laughed along when other executives made jokes about the little people, how he'd become exactly the kind of person I'd raised him not to be. And tonight, at his promotion party, I was going to find out just how far he'd fallen. I was refilling champagne glasses near the bar when I heard Vanessa's voice, sharp and cutting. "Marcus, darling, isn't that the security guard who let those protesters in last month?" She was pointing at me. Several executives turned to look. Marcus followed her gaze. Our eyes met. For a second, I saw recognition. Then something else. Panic. Horror. He knew who I was. Of course he did. But from the look on his face, he'd clearly hoped I wouldn't be working tonight. Wouldn't be here to see his moment of glory. Or maybe he'd hoped I wouldn't be here to remind everyone where he'd come from. Vanessa was still talking. The one who caused that whole security breach. "Marcus, you said they were going to fire him." I watched my son's face. Watched him make a choice. He could acknowledge me. Introduce me. Tell his wife and his colleagues that the security guard was his father. Instead, he turned away. "I don't know anything about that, honey. I'm sure HR handled it." My heart cracked. Just a little. But I kept my expression neutral, kept pouring champagne. The party continued. Speeches were made. Marcus gave a presentation about his vision for the technology department, full of buzzwords and corporate jargon that sounded impressive, but meant very little. The board members nodded approvingly. The CEO, Raymond Chen, my nephew who'd been running Novatech as my proxy for the past 5 years, caught my eye and raised an eyebrow. "Not yet." I signaled back with a slight shake of my head. Around 9 p.m., there was a commotion at the entrance. Vanessa's parents had arrived. Richard and Patricia Blackwell, looking exactly like old money always does. Expensive but understated, confident in their superiority. They made their way to Marcus and Vanessa, air-kissing and congratulating. I noticed how Marcus stood taller around them, how he laughed louder at Richard's jokes, how desperately he wanted their approval. It made me sad. When had my son become so small? I was clearing glasses from a nearby table when I heard Patricia's voice. "Marcus, darling, we're so proud of you. You've really made something of yourself. Despite everything. Despite everything. Despite having a father who was just a security guard." Marcus saw me then, standing 5 feet away, holding a tray of dirty glasses. Our eyes met again. I saw the calculation, saw him weighing his options. Then he made his choice. "Thank you, Patricia," he said. "I've worked hard to get where I am. Had to overcome a lot of disadvantages." Disadvantages. That's what I was. A disadvantage. Richard clapped him on the shoulder. "That's the spirit. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. None of this entitled millennial nonsense." The irony was almost painful. Richard Blackwell, who'd inherited his wealth from his father, who'd never worked a real job in his life, was praising my son for overcoming poverty. Poverty that hadn't existed. Disadvantages I'd spent my entire life making sure he never had. But Marcus was nodding eagerly. "Absolutely, sir. I believe in earning what you get, not relying on handouts." I'd heard enough. I turned to walk away when I heard Vanessa's voice. "Oh my God, is that security guard just standing there listening to our conversation? How rude." I stopped, turned back. "My apologies, ma'am. Just doing my job." Marcus's face went pale. He recognized the tone of my voice. The quiet anger I'd used when he was a teenager and had done something particularly stupid. Vanessa wasn't finished. "Well, do it somewhere else. This is a private conversation." "Vanessa," Marcus said quietly. "It's fine." But she was on a roll now, emboldened by champagne and her parents' presence. "No, it's not fine. These people need to learn their place. They're here to serve, not to eavesdrop." Patricia nodded approvingly. "You're absolutely right, dear. Standards have fallen so much these days." I looked at Marcus, gave him one more chance, one more opportunity to stand up, to acknowledge me, to remember who he was and where he came from. He looked away. "My apologies," I said again. "I'll leave you to your celebration." I walked away, feeling their eyes on my back, feeling my son's shame radiating across the room. but also feeling his relief that I was leaving. I made my way to the service area behind the kitchen, where the staff took their breaks. Maria found me there 10 minutes later. "Robert, I'm so sorry. I heard what happened." I shook my head. "It's all right." "It's not all right. The way she spoke to you was disgraceful. And your son just stood there. He made his choice." Maria sat down beside me. She was 62, had worked in event planning for 40 years. She'd seen everything. "You know, when you first told me who you really were, I didn't believe you. Robert Chen, the Robert Chen, working as a night security guard. But I understood why after I met your son." I'd confided in Maria about 6 months into my experiment. She'd caught me in Raymond's office late one night, going over quarterly reports. She'd kept my secret, even helped me maintain my cover. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to give him one more chance. Robert, one more. If he fails it, then I'll know for certain." I went back out to the ballroom. The party was winding down. People were getting drunker, louder. Marcus was in a group of executives, telling a story that had them all laughing. I approached with a tray of champagne glasses. Got close enough to hear. And I told him, "Dad, you can't just show up at my office whenever you want. I have a reputation to maintain." More laughter. "I mean, the man used to be a janitor. Can you imagine?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Not just the content, but the tone, the casual cruelty, the mockery. One of the executives, a man named Bryce, who'd been at the company for less than a year, laughed. "Dude, that's harsh. What's he do now?" Marcus shrugged. "Some kind of security work, I think. I don't really keep track. We're not that close." "We're not that close." I'd raised him alone for 23 years. Worked myself to exhaustion to give him every opportunity. Held him when he cried. Taught him how to drive. Walked him through his first heartbreak. Put him through college and graduate school. And we weren't that close. Vanessa appeared at his elbow. "Marcus, darling, Daddy wants to talk to you about that investment opportunity." "Great." Marcus's face lit up. He turned to his colleagues. "Gentlemen, if you'll excuse me, I have some real business to discuss." Real business. With his father-in-law, not with his actual father, who he'd just dismissed as someone he used to know. I felt something harden inside me, a decision crystallizing. I'd given him his chance, multiple chances. He'd failed every single one. It was time for him to learn the truth, and time for him to face the consequences of his choices. I caught Raymond's eye across the room, nodded once. He understood. He'd been waiting for this signal for months. Raymond made his way to the stage, tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment." The room quieted. Marcus stood near the front, Vanessa beside him, both smiling, probably expecting more praise. "I have a special announcement tonight," Raymond continued. "As many of you know, Novatech has been privately held since its founding. We've been fortunate to have the guidance and support of our primary investor and majority shareholder. Tonight, for the first time publicly, I'd like to introduce the man who made all of this possible." Marcus was still smiling, but I saw confusion creeping into his expression. He didn't know who Raymond was talking about. Our founder, majority shareholder, and the real visionary behind Novatech Solutions. He's been here tonight, actually, though most of you didn't recognize him. He likes to keep a low profile. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Chen. The room erupted in confused applause. People looking around, trying to figure out who he was talking about. I removed my security guard jacket. Underneath, I was wearing a tailored suit. I'd kept it in my locker, knowing I'd need it tonight. I straightened my tie and walked toward the stage. The applause faltered as people realized who I was, the security guard, walking through the crowd like I owned the place. Because I did. I reached the stage. Raymond shook my hand, grinning. "Uncle, it's good to finally do this publicly." The room was dead silent now. I could see the executives doing mental calculations. The security guard they'd ignored for 18 months was the owner of the company. The man who'd been serving them champagne had been evaluating them the entire time. I took the microphone, looked out at the sea of shocked faces. found Marcus in the crowd. My son's face was white, his mouth open. Vanessa beside him, equally stunned. "Good evening," I said. "I apologize for the deception, but I had my reasons. For the past 18 months, I've been working night security here at Novatech, not because I needed the money, but because I needed to understand something. I needed to see how this company was really running, how people treated each other when they thought no one important was watching." I paused. Let that sink in. I founded this company 32 years ago in a garage in Tacoma. I was a night janitor at Boeing, working my way through business classes at community college. I had an idea for inventory management software. I borrowed $5,000, maxed out 3 credit cards, and built the first version myself. People were listening now, really listening. Over the years, Novatech grew. We went from garage startup to major player. I brought on brilliant people, invested in innovation, built a culture of respect and hard work. At least, I thought I had. I looked directly at Marcus. But lately, I've been concerned. I've heard stories about how our newer executives treat support staff, about a culture of arrogance creeping in, about people forgetting that every single person in this building matters, from the CEO to the cleaning crew. Marcus's face was changing colors, red to white to red again. So I decided to see for myself. I went undercover, worked security, and you know what I learned? Silence. Everyone waiting. I learned that some people, when they think no one important is watching, reveal their true character. They're rude to waitstaff, dismissive of janitors, cruel to people they consider beneath them. I saw several executives shifting uncomfortably. Good. I also learned something more personal. I learned that my own son, Marcus Chen, the man we just promoted to VP of Technology, has forgotten where he came from. Marcus tried to speak. "Dad, I held up a hand. "I heard you tonight, son. You told your colleagues that we're not that close. You mocked my past as a janitor. You were embarrassed that I used to show up at your office. You stood by while your wife called me rude and told me to learn my place." Vanessa looked like she might faint. "You had multiple opportunities tonight to acknowledge me, to introduce me as your father. Instead, you pretended not to know me. You chose the approval of the Blackwells over your own father." Richard Blackwell was trying to edge toward the exit. I noticed. "Mr. Blackwell, please stay. I think you'll want to hear this." He froze. I turned back to Marcus. "Son, I raised you to be better than this. Your mother and I worked ourselves to exhaustion to give you opportunities. We taught you that character matters more than status, that kindness matters more than power. But somewhere along the way, you forgot those lessons." Tears were running down Marcus's face now. "Effective immediately, I'm making some changes at Novatech. Raymond will continue as CEO, but I'm taking a more active role in operations. We're implementing new policies around workplace respect and treatment of all staff members. Anyone who violates those policies will be terminated, regardless of position." I paused. This was the hard part. "Marcus, you're being moved from VP of Technology to a new role. You'll be working in our facilities management division. Starting salary $55,000 a year. No executive perks. No company car. No expense account." Gasps from the crowd. Vanessa made a sound like a wounded animal. "But Dad, you'll report to Janet Rodriguez, our head of facilities. You'll learn what it's like to be invisible, what it's like to have people look through you, what it's like to work hard without recognition or praise." Marcus was shaking. "You can't do this." "I absolutely can. I own 68% of this company. You'll take this position or you'll resign. Your choice." He looked around the room, desperate for support. But everyone was avoiding his eyes. The executives who'd been his friends minutes ago had already started calculating how to distance themselves. "This is because of her, isn't it?" Vanessa suddenly spoke up, pointing at me. "You're jealous that Marcus has moved on, that he's not Daddy's little boy anymore." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Mrs. Chen, your prenuptial agreement with my son is very clear. In the event of divorce or separation, you get what you brought into the marriage." Which, if I recall correctly, was nothing. Marcus's trust fund, His stock options, his assets, all of that was provided by me. And all of it has clauses that I can invoke. Her face went ashen. I suggest you think very carefully about your next words. She closed her mouth. I turned back to the crowd. I know this is uncomfortable, but sometimes growth requires discomfort. This company was built on principles of hard work, respect, and humility. We're going to get back to those principles. I stepped down from the stage, walked directly to Marcus. Up close, I could see he was crying. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Don't do this to me. Not in front of everyone. You did this to yourself, son. In front of everyone. You made your choices. Now, you live with the consequences." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you're being embarrassed. But are you sorry for who you've become? Are you sorry for how you've treated people? For how you treated me?" He couldn't answer. Couldn't meet my eyes. "Report to Janet's office, Monday morning, at 8 a.m. Don't be late." I walked past him, past Vanessa, whose parents were already backing away, probably calculating how to cut ties with this embarrassing situation. Past the executives who'd been laughing at his jokes minutes ago. Maria met me at the exit. She was trying not to smile. "Feel better?" she asked. "Ask me in a year." I went home that night to my house in Tacoma. The same house I'd raised Marcus in. The same house his mother had died in. I sat in my garage, looking at the tools we'd used together when he was young. The workbench where I'd taught him how to fix his first car. And I wondered if I'd made the right choice. The next morning, my daughter Sarah called. She lived in Portland, worked as a pediatrician. She'd been the one who'd warned me that Marcus was changing, who'd told me I needed to see it for myself. "I saw the video," she said. "Someone posted it online. It's going viral." "Great. Dad, are you okay?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I broke my son's life last night. I humiliated him in front of everyone he works with. Am I okay? I don't know. You gave him exactly what he needed. A wake-up call. Maybe. Or maybe I just destroyed whatever relationship we had left." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Dad, you know I love Marcus, but you did the right thing. He's been unbearable for the past 3 years. Vanessa's turned him into someone Mom wouldn't recognize. Maybe this will help him find his way back. And if it doesn't, then at least you tried." The following Monday, I went to the office. My real office, on the executive floor. It felt strange after 18 months of night shift security work. Raymond filled me in on everything that had happened over the weekend. Marcus had shown up to Janet's office at 7:30 a.m. Hadn't said a word, just waited until she arrived. She'd put him to work immediately, inspecting HVAC systems and coordinating with contractors. Vanessa had moved back to her parents' house in Connecticut. Marcus was staying in their Seattle condo, but he was alone now. The video of my revelation at the party had indeed gone viral. 3 million views and counting. The comments were mixed. Some people praised me for teaching my son a lesson. Others called me cruel and vindictive. A few suggested this was all staged for publicity. I didn't care about any of that. I cared about one thing. Would Marcus learn anything from this? Weeks passed. Then months. I watched from a distance as my son learned what it meant to work a job where no one cared about his opinions, where his Ivy League MBA meant nothing, where he was just another employee doing a necessary but unglamorous job. Janet reported that he was trying. He showed up on time, followed instructions, didn't complain. But he was going through the motions, she said. Doing the work, but not engaging with it. That changed 3 months in. There was an emergency on a Friday night. A major water leak in one of our server rooms. Millions of dollars of equipment at risk. The facilities team mobilized immediately, but it was chaos. They needed someone who understood the technical side, who could make quick decisions about what to save and what to sacrifice. Marcus stepped up. He coordinated with the IT team, prioritized the critical systems, worked alongside the maintenance crew for 16 hours straight to contain the damage and restore operations. Janet called me Saturday morning, exhausted but impressed. "Your son saved our asses last night. He didn't have to. He could have just clocked out and gone home. But he stayed, led the team, got his hands dirty, actually got down in the water, and helped move servers himself. How much damage? Could have been 3 million. He got it down to about 200,000, and most of that is cosmetic. After that, something shifted. Marcus started arriving early, staying late. He learned everyone's names in the facilities division, started having lunch with the maintenance crew, brought coffee for the cleaning staff. He stopped calling me, stopped asking for mercy or for his old job back. 6 months after the party, Raymond called me into his office. "We have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" "Marcus kind of problem. He's reorganized the entire facilities operation, implemented new systems, cut costs by 30% while improving response times. He's made himself indispensable." I allowed myself a small smile. And Janet wants to promote him to facilities manager, give him a team, but she's worried you'll think she's playing favorites. What do you think? Raymond leaned back in his chair. "I think your son has learned something. I think he's not the same person who stood on that stage 6 months ago, mocking his father and dismissing the people who work hard every day. Promote him." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. But Raymond, make him earn it. No special treatment. Standard salary for the position. No executive perks." "Understood." I didn't tell Marcus about my involvement in his promotion. He found out the same way as everyone else, through an email from HR. Janet told me later that he'd cried when he read it, then went back to work. The 1-year anniversary of the party came and went. Marcus still hadn't called me. I'd see him sometimes in the office, always with his facilities crew, solving problems, fixing things. He looked different, leaner, older, but also more at peace somehow. Then one day, my assistant told me someone was asking to see me. No appointment. Said it was personal. It was Marcus. He stood in my doorway, holding his hard hat, wearing work boots and a facilities division polo shirt. He looked nervous. "Can I come in?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat down. We looked at each other for a long moment. "I'm not here to ask for my old job back," he finally said. "I know. I'm not here to apologize, either. I mean, I am sorry for everything, but I know words don't mean anything at this point." "Then why are you here?" He took a deep breath. "I'm here to tell you that you were right about everything. I had become someone terrible, someone Mom would have been ashamed of, someone I'm ashamed of." I waited. "Working facilities has been the best thing that ever happened to me. I've learned more in the past year than I did in 6 years getting my bachelor's and MBA. I've learned that the people who keep this place running aren't the executives. It's people like Janet and Miguel and Sarah T. and everyone on the maintenance crew. They're the real heroes. I could have told you that. I know. You tried to. I didn't listen." He looked down at his hands. They were calloused now, scarred, working hands. Vanessa filed for divorce. Her lawyer tried to go after my trust fund, but the prenup held. She's gone back to Connecticut. Her parents won't speak to me. I'm sorry. He looked up, surprised. Are you? I'm sorry your marriage ended. I'm not sorry that you're free from people who only valued you for what you could do for them. Yeah, he smiled sadly. I'm learning the difference. Silence again. Then Marcus spoke. Sarah called me last week. Your sister, my aunt. She told me you've been watching, that you know about the promotion. I might have heard something about that. She also told me that you had a health scare 6 months ago, that you were in the hospital for 3 days. I hadn't wanted anyone to tell him that. It was minor. Heart attack isn't minor, Dad. Small heart attack. I'm fine now. Tears were forming in his eyes again. I wasn't there. When you needed me, I wasn't there. Just like I wasn't there for Mom. You were 12 when your mother died. That wasn't your fault. But this was. You could have died, and I wouldn't have known, because I was too proud, too ashamed, too stupid to pick up the phone and call my own father. He stood up abruptly. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to be the man you and Mom raised me to be. I'm trying to be someone worthy of being your son. I stood too, walked around the desk, looked at this man who'd caused me so much pain and disappointment, but who was also still my son, still the little boy I'd held when his mother died, still the young man I'd sent off to college with pride and hope. "You want to get dinner tonight?" I asked. He blinked. "What? Dinner? There's a diner in Tacoma, near the old house. Best meatloaf in the state. We used to go there when you were a kid, remember? Mel's Diner. Every Sunday after church. They're still open. Still make the same meatloaf." Marcus's voice broke. "I'd like that. I'd really like that. 6 o'clock. Don't be late." "I won't be. I promise." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." I nodded. Didn't trust myself to speak. After he left, I sat down at my desk and let out a long breath. Raymond appeared in the doorway. That looked intense. It was, "Think he's really changed?" I thought about it, about the past year, about the reports I'd gotten from Janet and others, about the man I'd just talked to versus the man who'd stood on that stage a year ago. "Yeah," I said, "I think he has." That night, I arrived at Mel's Diner at 5:50. Marcus was already there, sitting in our old booth by the window. He stood up when I came in. We sat down, ordered meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, the same meal we'd eaten here hundreds of times. We talked, really talked. For the first time in 3 years, he told me about the past year, about how humbling it had been, how angry he'd been at first, how that anger had slowly transformed into something else. Understanding, gratitude even. I told him about my 18 months undercover, about watching him, hoping he'd turn around on his own, about how much it had hurt to hear him deny knowing me. "I can't believe you stood there and listened to all that," he said. "I can't believe you didn't punch me." I considered it. He laughed. It was good to hear him laugh again. "So what now?" he asked. "Now you keep working, keep learning, keep being the man I saw at that server room emergency. And us? Us? We have dinner once a week. We rebuild. We remember who we are to each other." "I'd like that." The waitress brought our pie. Apple, warmed, with vanilla ice cream. Another tradition from when Marcus was young. "Dad?" Marcus said after a few bites. "I know I don't have the right to ask this, but I have a favor." "What kind of favor?" "There's a janitor at Novatech, Miguel Santos. He's brilliant. I've been talking to him during night shifts. He's been taking online coding courses, teaching himself programming. He's got ideas, real innovations for our systems." I smiled. "You want me to give him a shot?" "Just an interview. Let him show what he can do. If he's not good enough, fine. But I think he is. I think he could be amazing if someone gave him a chance. Just like someone had given me a chance 32 years ago. Just like I'd given Marcus a chance to find his way back." "Set up the interview. I'll talk to him myself." Marcus's face lit up. "Really? Really? And Marcus?" "Yeah? I'm proud of you. For noticing Miguel. For wanting to help him. That's the son I remember. That's who you really are." We finished our pie. Talked about Sarah. About the company. About his plans for the facilities division. It felt normal. It felt right. As we left the diner, Marcus hesitated by his car. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why didn't you just fire me? Why go through all this? The demotion, the year of hard labor, all of it. You could have just cut me off completely." I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the man he was becoming again. "Because you're my son. And sometimes the people we love need to fall before they can learn to stand on their own. I could have caught you, saved you from the consequences of your choices, but that wouldn't have helped you grow. Sometimes the greatest act of love is stepping back and letting someone face the results of their own actions." He nodded slowly. "That must have been hard for you. Hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than starting this company. Harder than raising you alone after your mother died. Watching you struggle, knowing I could fix it with one phone call, but choosing not to, that nearly killed me. But you did it anyway, because I love you. And I knew that the easy way wasn't the right way." Marcus hugged me then. Really hugged me. Not the awkward half-embrace we'd shared for the past few years. A real hug. "I love you, Dad. and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you proud. You already do, son. You already do. We made plans for next week's dinner. Same time, same place. A new tradition, or maybe a rekindling of an old one. As I drove home that night, I thought about the past year, about the hard choices I'd made, about whether I'd done the right thing. I still didn't know for certain. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe I'd damaged our relationship beyond repair, and tonight was just a temporary truce. But I didn't think so. I'd seen something in Marcus's eyes tonight, something that had been missing for 3 years. Humility, gratitude, character. He'd found his way back, not to where he'd been, but to somewhere better, stronger, more genuine. And that was worth everything. 3 months later, Miguel Santos started his new position as a junior developer at Novatech. Marcus had been right about him. The kid was brilliant. 6 months after that, Marcus got engaged again. Not to someone from old money or high society. To Alicia, one of the project managers in the facilities division. She was smart, kind, and saw him for who he really was. I walked him down the aisle at their small wedding. Sarah was there, crying happy tears. My whole family, together again. At the reception, Marcus gave a speech. He talked about failure and redemption, about hard work and humility, about a father who loved him enough to let him fall and then helped him learn to stand again. A year and a half ago, he said, I was at the top of the world, VP of a major tech company, married to the right woman, hanging out with executives and investors. I thought I had everything. He paused, looked directly at me. But I had nothing, because I'd lost myself. I'd forgotten what really mattered. It took my father, the wisest man I know, to show me the truth. He did it in the hardest way possible. He let me fail, let me face consequences, let me discover who I really was when everything else was stripped away. He raised his glass. To my father, Robert Chen, who taught me that real success isn't measured in titles or salary or status. It's measured in character, in how you treat people, in who you are when no one important is watching. He smiled. Turns out, someone important was always watching, and I'm grateful he never stopped. Everyone raised their glasses. I stood up, walked over to my son, and embraced him. I'm proud of you, I whispered. I'm proud of me too, Dad. Finally. That night, driving home, I thought about the security guard uniform still hanging in my office closet, a reminder of 18 months spent invisible, watching, learning. Some people thought what I did was cruel. Maybe it was. But sometimes cruelty is kindness in disguise. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. I'd given my son everything growing up. Money, opportunities, education. But the most important gift I ever gave him was the chance to lose it all and find himself again. That was the gift his mother and I had always meant to give him. Not wealth or status or easy success, but character, resilience. The knowledge that who you are matters more than what you have. It just took him a little longer to unwrap it than I'd hoped. But he got there, and that's what matters. I pulled into my driveway, looked up at the stars, and imagined my wife somewhere up there, smiling. We'd done it, together. Even though she'd been gone for 23 years, we'd raised our son right. It just took him falling down a few times to figure out how to stand tall. And isn't that what parenting really is? Loving someone enough to let them fall, knowing that the climb back up will make them stronger than they ever could have been if they'd never fallen at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Thanks for everything, Dad. See you for dinner Tuesday? I smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it for the world.